Right. Oh, it's straight up noon right now. Hey, everybody. This is Lynn Yeldale. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Seventh Scout webinar. And it is the second in a series that we're doing regarding SEO, well, actually regarding digital marketing during the age of coronavirus. And just wanted to thank you all for dialing in. We've got a bunch of people coming from really all over, which was a huge compliment to us. And speaking of the us, I get the opportunity to kind of represent the team at Seventh Scout. And we've got joining us on the webinar today, these four scouts. And in our efforts to make sure that we get to speak about our team in the most enthusiastic manner that we have, we typically like to have another team member introduce us. And so what that does, and I highly recommend it for you and your groups, is instead of having to sit there and say something about yourself, you get to be introduced by one of your partners and so forth. So first off, we have Rhodes Gibson, and I'm not sure who's introducing Rhodes today.
I am, Christy.
Who's that? All right, Christy, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, I get the opportunity to introduce Rhodes. He's an amazing human and director of digital here at Seventh Scout. He has years of experience working with technology, and unlike most back-end tech expert, he enjoys working with people, and he's passionate about combining personality traits and skills with digital technology. He's got a ton of specialties, including tech technology, website development, web accessibility, HTML, and so forth. The list goes on.
Awesome, great job. And then next up is me, and I don't know who's introducing me.
I am.
Yay! Thanks, Eve.
All right. So Lynn is one of the partners at Seventh Scout, and she's our director of strategy. She has an MBA from UT and BS in finance from the University of Alabama. Lynn was recognized as one of the top 20 women ever to graduate from the University of Alabama. Her career spanned corporate to startup, and Lynn is committed to diversity and women's issues as reflected in our 100% LGBTQ owned agency. She founded L-Style, G-Style, and serves as board chair of the Long Center, board member of KUT, among others. And Lynn's superpower is blending her business background with the insight of running startups and just being an amazing listener to help guide our clients and partners through thoughtful and deliberate growth.
Thanks, Eve. I appreciate that. All right, and next up, Eve. I'm assuming that's Rhodes.
That sure is. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Eve. So at Seventh Scout, Eve leads all of the design efforts that we do, and she is an art director and designer with over 20 years of experience in the field. So we are certainly lucky to have her. One of the things that she always brings to everything that she does is she creates work that conveys the client's branding, the messaging, but then also has a really nice way of being able to encourage the end user to do something. So that's really what we want our websites, we want our products to do, is we want the end user to do something. And what's especially cool about this webinar is that I think most people would think about SEO as something that doesn't have much to do with design. But Eve is not just a regular designer. And so we'll go through and you'll see how design does play a big aspect in it, and where we, on a daily basis, we're working on stuff where the design isn't just the top layer of a project. It's something that goes all the way through a product. And I'm really excited that she's on this webinar.
Me too. And then I get the opportunity to introduce Christy Morris. Christy is Seventh Scout's marketing manager, and also her favorite name for us is she is our sparkly unicorn. And Christy brings so much experience and enthusiasm to the team. She's a talented marketing professional with like 11 plus years experience leading and executing holistic digital marketing strategies for industry leaders in e-commerce, tech, entertainment, fashion, and social justice. And speaking of social justice, she's rooted her passion for growing communities into founding the Austin's Women Empowerment Meetup. And that's a place where she encourages women to share in a safe space and confidential setting to gain strength and develop supportive relationships. She also used these experiences and that really kind of heart with connecting with people, led her to the Texas Suicide Prevention Program, where she became ASK certified. And so helping people and listening to them in the time of need. She takes all of these passions and skills and so forth and helps work with our client partners in executing some great strategies, email campaigns, social media campaigns, and really understanding targeting those personas and speaking on behalf of the client. So we're really happy to have all four of us here today. And even more importantly, I'm going to have to refer to some cheat sheets right here. But right before we got started, we looked through and wanted to know who you were, who we would be speaking to, because when we set this up, it's an SEO webinar where we're going to just talk about some basics. For people more advanced, it might be level setting. And for others, it might be the first time you've heard these terms. And as we progress through the webinar, we'll finally get to what we recommend our clients and people to do in this age of coronavirus, where most everyone is transacting business online. So there was a great outpouring. We actually have a global webinar today. We have Leslie, who last I knew she was in Singapore, but she might be joining us from Zurich today. She's an international brand strategist. Juliet's calling in from Georgia. She's got quite a pair, keepsakes.com, where she does one-of-a-kind custom frames made out of recycled materials, which is super cool. We've got Danielle calling in here from Austin. She's a civil engineering consulting expert. Anita of Broccolino Marketing Connections and Events. I loved Anita's when she RSVP'd. She is the director of and the VP of Fun, and she does her own marketing strategy. Christy's calling in here from Austin. She's a massage therapist. We've got two of you all today online from reliefbodywork.com. So Christy here in Austin. Laura's calling in from Right Light. They have offices in the UK and Germany, and they design and manufacture quality LED lighting for over 30 years. Finally, we've got Lee from Austin Watsu, another local Austin therapist calling in. Phyllis is the CEO of Habitat for Humanity here in Austin, and in 2019, she got the Austin Business Journal's Award for Best CEO. And Jenna from Creatrix Photography. She's a repeat of our last webinar. And Camille's either calling in from Austin or Aspen, not sure where Camille is right now. And just so appreciative of you all taking the time to join us today. It's just phenomenal. So we're going to go over these topics. Let's come over here really quickly. So basically, we want to talk about, strategic SEO. It drives significant business growth. And so what is SEO? Search engine optimization. And it's a strategy used to boost your search engine rankings. Well, that's a tough one for me to say right now. So we've got 7 tips. 4 came from our ebook, which you'll get a copy of after this webinar. And then also the last 3 kind of helping us adapt to today's social environment or SEO environment here, in the time of what's happening with coronavirus. So these first 4, we need to understand first, how do search engines work? The second, know the main components. Third, make a plan to get started. Fourth, look for ways to improve that plan. Then we're going to talk to you about developing video content, staying committed, and then finding your authentic voice. So the first 3 slides, I'm going to turn it over to Rhodes Gibson, again, partner and the director of digital here, and he's a tried and true developer. So Rhodes, why don't you take it over here and let me know when you want me to advance to the next slide and kind of walk us through about how search engines work.
Sure thing. I think it's always a good place to start here. I know that I would imagine that a lot of the people on this webinar are looking to find what are those concrete things that they can do to impact their search engine rankings. But kind of like the foundation here is if we understand how search engines work, that makes what we do to impact those rankings make a little bit more sense. Let's think of what a search engine is. A search engine is in the business of giving the end user, somebody who's making that search, relevant information and quickly. So, we all been to Google, Bing, Yahoo, and we put something in that search term, and we expect something to come up pretty quickly. You've seen those results come up on Google, and it's in 2.8 billion records in 1.7 seconds, and that's what we expect now. And if we think about that, and in the overall volume of searches. So if we look at just Google, which is just one of many search engines, on Google alone, there are 63,000 searches per second. So just think about that. That every second there's 63,000 people looking for something, and this search engine is in the business to give you the best user experience, to give you the best rankings, the best relevant information to answer the question that you're asking. And so how do search engines do that, and how do they do it differently? Because remember, they're all in competition with each other. They want to provide just that much better of an experience than the search engine down the street. So what search engines do is they send out what you will oftentimes refer to as bots or spiders, but software that crawls the internet. So it goes out, looks for pages, looks for websites, looks for content, and basically crawls the internet, looking for content and in association with a URL. So URL is what you would put into a browser to get to that content. So it's going around and it's crawling, and these things happen all the time. And it's nothing that you have to necessarily do, although you can invite that process, instead of just waiting for it to happen. So once a bot goes and finds content, then it takes all that and it indexes the content. So once a bot has indexed your content, let's say your web page, then you are now in the ranking, or you're in the running to be able to show up for a search. So that's going to be the second step of this process, is getting indexed. And what you want to do the reason you want that to happen is you want to make sure you're in the right, that you're in that source file where people can go, and search engines will then take your content and rank them for a search. And then what a search engine does is ranks those items that are indexed. And so the ranking happens through what people will call algorithms. Now, algorithms are complex equations that rank hundreds of factors in order to produce that list of the most relevant answers to your question or to your search query. Now, each of them do it a little bit differently. And so that's why if you search for something on Bing, you're going to get a slightly different result than if you search it on Google. And again, those different algorithms change very frequently. So you might be at the top of the page one day, and you might be number 2 on the page the very next day. So those oftentimes will change, and part of the search engine optimization process is keeping up to date with those changes and doing what you can from your content perspective to make sure that you rank well. And the graph here you see is circular. And so this happens over and over and over again. And you want that to happen frequently, because your website most likely will have content that is changing. So if you have blog posts or if you have new content, you want this process to be happening over and over and over again, so that your newest content, the content that's going to be asked, that's going to come up for questions that are being asked today, you want to make sure that it's pulling, search engines are pulling for the most recent information.
Awesome. And I know we're getting ready to go to the next slide. I did miss one piece of housekeeping earlier, and I apologize. We do have Christy that's keeping an eye on the chat pane. So if you have a question, raise your hand, go ahead and chat in. We want this to be as interactive as possible, so please participate. I know that this is kind of building the building blocks, but a lot of this is going to start raising some questions for you, and specifically in what you're trying to build with your business and brand. So please know that we're very interruptible and very looking forward to hearing your questions. One thing that I know people are asking a lot about, Rhodes, is you talk about those algorithms and those updates. you know, I always thought like, oh, that'd be great. You just go over to Google algorithm and see what their guidance is right now. But it's not that transparent, is it? A bit of those algorithms are pretty opaque. And can you speak to that just very quickly?
Sure. And, you know, that's where it's, you know, I think that a slide like this is so fascinating, is that we oftentimes will think, wouldn't it be great if we knew exactly what those factors were? And yet in the space of search engines, think about, you know, if Bing had a list of what it considered the most important things and published that, well, wouldn't Google love to know what those factors are so they could do an even better product? And so that's where you can start to see that from a competitive standpoint, those algorithms are highly confidential. That each of the search engines don't necessarily want other search engines knowing how they rank their content. Now, the other piece of it is that if suddenly we knew that, and let's take, you know, this is something that has been we work kind of reverse engineer rankings to see what are those components that seem to have the most impact on rankings, and meta description was one of those components. So years ago, meta description was a very important piece that was an important factor in determining how you ranked. And as people discovered that, they started to put content in their meta description that wasn't necessarily reflective of what their page was, and in that effort trying to game the system. And so what search engines did in response is they effectively took out meta description as one of those factors. And so it's generally considered that meta description is not one of those factors that search engines look at any longer when they determine ranking. Now, you know, meta description still is very, very important in the overall search engine and optimization experience, but you know, it's no longer part of that strict algorithm any longer.
Got it. Good. Thank you for that clarification. I've always kind of wondered about it. It seems like a double-edged sword. So, yeah.
It is, and it's something that's always changing. So. Got
it. All right. So, Rhodes, carrying on with you.
And once we start to, you know, get an understanding of what the search engines do, where we start and where a lot of people start is they start searching. So if you go to Google and you put in a term and you start to see what are the kinds of things that come up. And this is helpful for any business or any individual who's kind of first starting to attack, you know, the search engine optimization experience, is search for those terms that you think you should be coming up for and look at what does come up. What you'll find, and it depends on what you're searching for, is you'll see some what we call organic listings. And so organic listings are the ones that are coming from all of that content that's being indexed from those bots that are traveling the internet. And that's what comes up organically. Oftentimes you'll find that above those are ones that are placed by ads. So you can buy ads to place yourself above the organic listings. And it all kind of varies on which keywords you're looking at. But that's always the first step, is look at what your end user is going to be experiencing, and go to Google, to Bing, to Yahoo, and put in those terms and see what they would be finding when you think they should be finding you. Another thing is, we'll go through this, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of factors that you could spend hours and hours on trying to finesse your search engine rankings. Unless that is what you do on a daily basis and you just love doing just that and only that, then what I would recommend is doing an SEO audit. And so an SEO audit is an automated process that can go and go through your sites.
We just have to admit, this is from our last presentation. We talked about the New York Times tech said people don't want to see your dogs, your kids, your partners, your family. And at 7 Scout, we have a very, very different approach on that. And we love hearing the dogs and love hearing the partners and love hearing the family. So that's Toby, who had a few words of his own about SEO.
Yes, yes. And so an SEO audit is an automated process that will go through and comb through your site and give you all of those results. So it'll kind of pull out what some of those important factors are that maybe you see a whole bunch of low-hanging fruit that you could say, hey, I can go in and I can change these H1 tags. I can go through and I can add this content, and it'll help you kind of prioritize what are those things that I should be focusing on first, because otherwise you're just looking at a lot of things that you could be doing. It's also good to run a competitor analysis. If you're in a really competitive field, look and see what your competitors are doing, and then decide, do I want to go into a piece of that search engine optimization area that is really, really competitive, or is there an area that perhaps isn't as competitive, or something that your competitors aren't doing? And so that'll give you a way to maybe to build a strategy on how you're going to approach your search engine optimization process. And then finally, looking based on all those elements, where do you need help? Building your SEO team could be, there could be a design component, there could be a content component, there could be a coding component. Where do you need help, and where do you need to pull other people in? And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a cost. It could be where you get feedback from somebody else. It could be that you make sure that you pay attention to that when you're bringing new content in. But look at who your team needs to be in order for it to address your specific needs for your site.
Super. And any questions coming in, Christy, or move along?
I'm actually not the organizer, so the messages aren't.
Got it. All right, so let's go ahead and move on along to slide number 3. And I think this is starting to get into some design and strategy that Eve wanted to share with us.
Yes, thank you. So we're going to talk about keywords or key phrases. And let's start with, what is a keyword? A keyword is a word that describes the content on your page or post best. It's the search term that you want to rank for with the search engines. And so a keyword could be a single word, but more often than not, it's a key phrase. And so that's 1, 2, 3 words, something like that. Keywords are very important because one of the things that Google or the other search engines look at when ranking a page is the content of the page. It looks at the words that are actually on the web page. And the words that you're using on the page are clues for the search engine. They tell Google or the other search engines what the page or post is about. So if you want to make the search engines understand what your page is about, you need to use your keywords often on the page. But SEO isn't the only reason why keywords are important. Sure, you want people to land on your website when using certain terms or keywords. And to do that, you need to get into the heads of your audience and use the words that they use when they are searching. And that's why having an effective keyword strategy is bigger than just SEO. So if you forget about rankings, traffic, or even your website for a minute, and think about your customers, if you knew their true feelings and intentions, how would you operate your business differently? How influential would those insights be to your marketing strategy? And that's why, when you think about how your audience is searching for things that you can help them with, living and breathing the idea of keywords and key phrases is just so important. And so, you could probably easily identify some of the keywords and key phrases that apply to you and your website. But finding the most effective keywords, it's an art and a science that's called keyword research. And so with keyword research, it's the process of finding the right keywords for your website to target. You don't necessarily want to target the most popular keywords about your product or your industry because those would be super competitive. They'd be expensive to advertise, and because there'd be so many people using them, to rely just on organic results, you wouldn't see a lot of bump from that. But by the same token, you don't want to target keywords that no one is searching for. So how does one go about finding those keywords and doing keyword research, we look at a couple different qualities to define a keyword's value. One is search volume. So that's, how often is it being used? How many searches are being executed around that phrase? The other one is competition. So who else is using that key phrase? How do you stack up or align with them? If you're looking at doing some pay-per-click, then you want to look at the price of those keywords. Can your budget support that? Can you afford to do that? And you want to look at the word count and intent of those key phrases and make sure that you're really targeted and focused on those things. Let's move on to the next slide, and we're going to look at page structure and how keywords and key phrases kind of play into the HTML code elements that comprise your website. And so there are lots and lots of structural elements that factor into SEO, but we're going to talk about title tags and heading tags and why they're two of the most important structural elements for SEO, search engine optimization. So let's talk about title tags, and these are also called page titles. It's an HTML element that specifies the title of an individual web page. So title tags are displayed on search engine results, usually as the clickable headline for any given result. And they're important for usability, for SEO, and for social sharing. So the title tag of a web page should be an accurate and concise description of that page's content. Title tags are a major factor in helping search engines understand what your page is about, and they're often the first impression many people have of your page. They're used in three key places. One, on the search engine results page, two, in web browsers, because they're typically what appears in the tab or the top bar of that browser window. And third, in social networks. If somebody is sharing a link to a page on your site, often that title tag will be carried over with that shared content. And so it's important that it's accurate and relevant. We have some tips for developing effective title tags. First is to watch your title length. So think 50 to 60 characters long. Shorter than that, and you might not be able to be as accurate and descriptive as possible. Longer than that, and no one's going to see the end of it. The search engines will actually, cut it off around 50 or 60 characters, so you won't see anything that comes after that. When you're thinking about your title tags, you also don't want to overdo it with your keywords. You want your title tags to sound readable and authentic. And so if you're cramming a bunch of keywords in there, hoping to game the system, it actually won't work, and it'll just look and sound goofy. And the third thing is you want to give each page of your site a unique title. And you absolutely want to avoid default titles like home or new page that that your CMS might kind of generate automatically as you're creating content. A good example format for a title tag is two keywords followed by your brand name. So think primary keyword, secondary keyword, brand name, the name of your site or the name of your company.
Awesome. Digital marketing 7th Scout.
Exactly, right.
Awesome.
Yeah. HTML also has 6 different heading tags, H1, H2, and so on. So that stands for heading 1, heading 2. And that's something that is developed in the style sheet of your website. So content can be defined with these different tags, and H1 is considered the most important tag. H6 is considered the least important. And when you think about the design and visual appearance of your website, the tags are often formatted and styled from the largest or most important to the smallest or least important. So Your H1s will typically be designed to be the biggest, boldest text on the page. And H1s are super important. There have been plenty of trends in SEO that have come and gone, but H1s have never lost their significance. In fact, 80% of the first page search results in Google use an H1.
Oh, goodness.
And we have some tips around how to use and create your H1s as well. Generally, it's good to use just one H1 per page. That kind of helps keep the topic of the page really focused from the search engine's perspective. And your H1 should definitely describe the topic of your page. You want to think 20 to 70 characters long. Again, too short is generic, and too long becomes unfocused. So it's okay for your H1 to read like a normal sentence. And then from a design standpoint, your H1 should visually stand out. When someone arrives at that page, the H1 should be the first thing that they see because of its prominence and the way it's displayed. And then when you think about your H2s, H3s, all the way to H6s, these other heading tags should be used in descending order of importance for your page content. Let's go ahead and look at the next slide, and I'm going to show you an example of how we're using title tags and H1 on our homepage.
Awesome. And as we advance, one of the things that I hear a lot of people ask about is, and I think I was guilty of this as well, because I didn't come from a technology background. I came from more of a business and finance background. And I really thought that search engines were kind of tricky and that they were trying to game a system or something. And the more I hear and the more I work with clients, the more I realize that they're really just trying to be helpful. And it seems like this perfect marriage, like the better you are as a business or a brand at understanding who and what you are, the better the search engine is able to come in and say, oh, that's what you're looking for. Let me send you more traffic. And the more I hear you talk about the H1s and the title tags, the more I go back to the work that we do with clients and with other folks. It's like, I heard you and Rhodes say, be authentic, know your words. So I think this is a good segue. You can kind of walk through our site and challenge people to kind of have that same conversation when they look at their own websites.
Absolutely. That's such a good point, is that, being honest and authentic is really the best policy. That's something that when you think about your SEO strategy, if people are searching for things and finding you and you're able to actually deliver those things, that's the perfect cycle for it. So, our human nature wants to kind of try to game and rig the system and all of that, but in the end, I think that has the potential to backfire, cause bad user experiences and just kind of bad relationships in general.
Nobody wants that. So go ahead and walk through ours, yes.
Yeah, so if we're looking at, this is the 7th Scout homepage, and I've highlighted our H1 and our title tag. And so our title tag, it contains 3 keywords or key phrases that are important to us. What we are, we're a digital marketing agency. What we do, we specialize in inbound marketing. And where we are, we're here in Austin, Texas. And our H1 is a succinct statement of what we are and who we work with. We're the digital marketing agency for growing brands. And so you'll notice that we've included digital marketing agency in both our title tag and our H1. And that's going back to what we've said about the importance of trying to optimize a page around a single keyword, really being focused and disciplined with that. And so, what you were saying a second ago, Lynn, it's that perfect thing where you want your title tags and your H1s to sound authentic and natural, but it's important to be disciplined and focused as well. You can't be everything to everyone.
So we heard of keyword stuffing. You don't want to be title tag and H1 stuffing.
Exactly.
There you go. All right, good. Ready to move on?
Yeah, let's do that.
Awesome. All right.
Content. So how does content fit into SEO? I think that this graphic from Neil Patel's website is a great illustration of that connection. You know, if you're having trouble seeing it, it's 2 stick figures, and the first one is saying, "Hi, my name is SEO, and I need you to blank." And then the second one is saying, "Hey, I'm content marketing. I'll do that for you." And so it is kind of this question and answer exchange. And so when we talk about content creation and the content of your website, it's more than just the text on the pages. Yes, the H1s are super important, but there's also long form content. You know, this is paragraphs and paragraphs of content. Think blog posts, for example. There's also multimedia and video content, and even the wording of your call to action page links are important from an SEO perspective. So what's great about search engines is that they're getting closer and closer to understanding and processing natural language. You know, it used to be that you needed to be a good searcher to find the things that you were looking for. And that's becoming less so. You can simply, you know, ask the search engine a question, and it's getting better and better about understanding the intent and syntax. And when you think about, you know, voice search and all the things that we're doing nowadays, that's the perfect example of that. And the good news about that from a content creation standpoint is that means that good writing will help your content map to your SEO strategy. So that's just using natural synonyms rather than repeating the exact same keywords over and over. You know, and it's easy to like get trapped into keyword thinking and veer into keyword stuffing. You know, it's okay to just try to write in a natural voice to your audience. And once you've done that, and once you have some content that you're ready to publish, we have some recommendations for an SEO sanity check. And think of this as a further edit of your content rather than something you should be thinking about as you're writing. So once you have a draft of your content, you can do this sanity check for SEO to make sure you've covered the following. First, it's a good idea to use your keyword or key phrase in your title, because we know that you know that the H1s are really important. So if this is the title of the content, you'll set it as H1, and the SEOs and the search engines will find it. You know, you might want to use a secondary keyword as an H2. In the paragraphs of the content, make sure that the keyword appears at least once, but not more than 4 times, especially if it's a phrase, because then it'll feel like keyword stuffing. And if you have images with the content, use the keyword when appropriate as the alt text for that image.
I thought that was so important. Someone told me one time, it's said, you know, why do you have to put alt text with all of your images? And they said, search engines don't see, they read. And I thought that was really interesting. That I got a visual of that, of these, you know, as Rhodes described, and these spiders crawling all over. And it's like they're almost like consuming all of these words and trying to figure out what your website's about, but they can't see a picture. And by telling the search engines, like, this is a picture of a this, then that just helps them more understand what your website's about. Is that a fair way of summing that up?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, it's like alt tags on images are super important, and they're also super easy to add. You know, it doesn't take much effort as you're adding a page to your site and publishing it to make sure that that image has an accurate and descriptive alt tag. It's definitely important from an SEO perspective. And you know, accessibility is something that's really important to me. And so if you think about somebody who is using a screen reader, perhaps because of a visual impairment or something else, it allows them to experience the page completely. So, you know, their screen reader will read the alt tags of the images, and so they can actually see or picture the things that, that they're not able to visually see. And so it's a really important thing to do for a variety of reasons.
Great reminder. Yeah, and I know you said that this image is from Neil Patel. I know we're all big fans. He's such a, an industry thought leader. I believe he's opened up his keyword tool, Uber Suggest, right now during coronavirus to the public for free use. And so I wanted to make sure that we shared that with everybody as well, that if they go to neilpatel.com and go to Uber Suggest, you can get some great world-class help in your SEO as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there are just so many great tools and resources out there, and so many folks that that can, provide insight and help that, yeah, and Neil Patel is absolutely amazing.
Awesome. All right, ready to move on?
Let's do that.
All right.
We were reading this post from Tenuity the other day, and it's about adapting your 2020 SEO strategy to the impact of coronavirus. That's something that, of course, is on everybody's minds. And they were stressing the importance of video content. Just like it's not just the words and it's not just pictures. Video content is such a rich way to provide value and storytelling to your audience. And so relevant video content to get in front of your users can be a really impactful way to kind of augment your SEO strategy and create video topics that your audience might be interested in.
And I feel like we're in the age where, as we kind of shift from what is SEO, right, to how do we adapt in this new environment with coronavirus. I feel that what we're hearing the most of, it's not like all of a sudden people woke up and said, oh, I should probably have a website that really matches my offline personality. I really should start, there's this thing called video that I've never heard of. I feel like all the companies and brands that we're working with knew that these were things that were important. It's just now they've become critical to survival. And I just find, I know we're doing more video. We're doing these webinars right now because we're not able to meet one-on-one in person with our clients. And we're having to make sure that we're, helping and doing our be nice, make better, and giving back. But I just think that these are strategies and tools for coping that have accelerated timelines. And in my opinion, I don't think that once this is over and we all kind of go back to whatever normal looks like then, that we're going to stop having video or stop, really doing defined search. It's almost like this is the time to really get back to understanding who your personas are and how to best be found online and keep this strategy going forward.
Definitely, yeah.
All right. Any other questions along from everybody? You ready to move along to the next slide?
Yeah, I just wanted to share a couple of interesting resources. Like I was saying, you don't have to go it alone. There are lots of great tools and resources out there to help you find what topics are trending or that might be of interest to your audience. And so the content strategy discovery tool from Built Visible is a great resource for this. And there's other websites out there that provide similar things. And so I really, encourage folks to leverage and utilize these other resources out there, because there are folks that just have really built their lives around SEO and helping folks do it effectively. There's also a great fun tool called Portent's Content Idea Generator. And it's a really fun way to explore turning your keywords into titles for blog posts or pages, and sometimes with kind of hilarious results. But it's just, I think it's like a good exercise to get into that mindset of, how to write really engaging, sticky, and noticeable titles.
You almost made me think it's like Mad Libs for content.
It kind of is, yeah.
You kind of get back what you put in, right?
Maybe.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I'll make sure that when we do the follow-up, we post this to our blog and email all of the participants. We'll include links to these tools so that everybody has access to them. So thank you for sharing
Awesome.
those. So this, as we start wrapping this up and talking about where do we go now, I wanted to be able to share a little bit as well, kind of some content lessons and takeaways that we're watching. And I kind of alluded to it earlier, like we got to stay committed to the long term. This isn't an opportunity to say, what's my strategy going to be over these next few days, weeks, months, years? You really need to think about what are these permanent changes that you're doing and know and be able to communicate those versus some of these temporary adaptations. So I guess to take a step back, let's start from the bottom of the slide and work up. First, make a schedule. We were laughing around a conversation the other day. Somebody said, "What day is it?" And someone said, "It's Blur's Day." And I just thought that was hilarious. And it really does. It feels like every single day is the same. And I think one of the things that we've enjoyed being able to rely on is having a content calendar, a schedule, and staying committed to this long term. At the same time, when you have the schedule, be very careful with your, I don't know, anything that's automated right now, your emails that are going out, your schedulers and so forth. Have a contingency plan. Things are getting a little less scary every day. Things feel that we're kind of settling in, but there's still a lot of announcements that, not knowing everyone's personas and businesses, but they could really impact what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So get that schedule together, but usually we would check in, on a monthly basis. We're checking in on those schedules daily and making sure that what we're saying and how we're communicating, the keywords we're using and so forth are still remaining relevant. Again, focus on your customer needs and think beyond coronavirus. Where are your clients right now? How are they coping? How are they going to be communicating with you? Make some adaptations. We were speaking with somebody in the performing arts the other day, and it may be months, it may be years before people feel comfortable coming back in crowds. So make some of these adaptations, but also know that once a lot of these restrictions are lifted, that people may not be going back to their day-to-day activities. Moving quickly along, so I know we're coming up at about 15 minutes left. I also wanted to kind of wrap up by sharing a little bit about what Rhodes was talking about earlier, and it is, I guess it's really the culmination of all of our conversations, is remaining authentic through all of this. And I'm definitely a Pollyanna, and the more that I'm learning about search engine optimization and what these websites are trying to present and to do, the happier I feel about it. One of the things I looked at, and I just said, we keep talking about it's become a verb, right? To Google something is to search for something. And I just was curious, how much does Google represent of market share? Some statistics say it's up as much as 90% of global search engine traffic and 60% in the US. And so I think that's why a lot of people in the industry will kind of start with Google and work their way down from there. And because, as Rhodes said, they look at each other and see what algorithms and what adjustments that they're making. It was interesting too. I know that they used to have a motto or a tagline, "Don't be evil." And when Alphabet came out and they really started changing a lot of their business model, they shifted it to a little bit more optimistic, and it's now do the right thing. And their whole tenet with search engine marketing is beneficial purpose. And I love that Eve created, when she put these slides together for us, a heart. And it really is. It's something that is rooted within the Google search engine. Websites and pages should be created to help users, because it's about the users first and foremost. And so beneficial purpose plays right into that, because it means that your site and content should have a user-focused purpose that benefits them in some way. And so to the left, they have YMYL and EAT, EAT. And YMYL stands for your money or your life. Now, I will also show my age, because the first time I read that, I want you all to think of a song right now when you hear Your Money or Your Life. And I don't know if we can get it going in the chat very quickly, but Your Money or Your Life, I immediately went and searched for it in lyric, and it came up with a band that I wasn't recognizing. So Your Money or Your Life was from an Adam Ant song. For me, Adam and the Ants Stand and Deliver, Your Money or Your Life. And when I Googled this, it came up with Ice Cube. So I'm going to show my age. I'm from the Adam Ants, but you might be from the Ice Cube era with this. But what does it really mean? What it means is after making sure that your website has a beneficial purpose, going back to that authenticity, Google pays particular attention to anything that might impact someone's money or their health. It's a way that is their most important thing. Are you being helpful to their overall well-being and to their financial well-being? And if you have advice that is helping someone in that regard, you will be elevated. And if it is detrimental, they will definitely take that content very seriously and really suppress your rankings. And that I thought was one of the coolest things that they built into the algorithm. Then that next level that they look at is what is your expertise, what is your authority, and what is your trustworthiness. And so that's another way that Google goes in and says, are you giving content that helps someone in some way? And can you show on your website that you have the expertise, authority, and trustworthiness within these two areas? So I thought those were very important, kind of a nice way to put a bow on what does SEO mean and where does your business, brand, and company need to focus on, understand what the technical parts are, but also understand kind of where the heart, literally, of search engines are and what they're looking for, and remaining authentic to serving your clients. So that kind of wraps it up. I don't know if Rhodes and Christy and Eve, if you all, while I've been chatting, either thought of some questions or were able to watch some hands going up and conversations in the chat. While we're teeing that up, I do want to let everybody know that we just so appreciate the opportunity. This is the second in a series that we're doing. These webinars are every other Wednesday at noon. So our next one will be on metrics and ROI. So our first webinar was kind of the do's and don'ts of digital marketing in the age of coronavirus. Out of that stemmed this webinar of, now that everybody's at home, online more than ever, how can you make sure that your business or brand is found in search? And so this is our SEO module. And then after that, we're a data-driven group, and we wanted to make sure that we shared with you all some best practices of monitoring the metrics and the ROI. So you're going to, in these next 2 weeks, go out and look at your keywords, your competitors, doing your search, looking at your title tags, looking at your H1, finding the voice of your brand, connecting to your customers. The number one way we know it's working is your phone is ringing, your orders are coming in, and you're getting attention to your content. But there's ways along the way, and we want to share, like, what are the metrics and the ROI that you need to look at. So make sure to mark your calendars for Wednesday, April 29th at noon. And we'll have the opportunity to log in and register just like we did on our 7thscout.com website under the blog. And then if every other Wednesday we've done webinars, we've also had some demand from people to say, hey, we just saw that webinar, we implemented a few of these tips and tricks into our website, but we'd like to come back and ask some questions and see if we're doing it right. And rather than try to field those on email or phone calls and so forth, we thought it'd be nice to bring all of you back together for what we call online office hours. So the online office hours for this SEO webinar will be held on Thursday, April 23rd at 11:30. And it's your opportunity to join us online, have questions, and listen in to see what other people are doing as well. And so just remember that every other Wednesday, we'll address a new topic, and then every other Thursday, we'll have online office hours to field your questions. So got about 5 minutes left, Scouts. Yeah, go ahead, Rhodes, sorry.
And we do have a question that has just come through, and it's an awesome question. It's how do we incorporate analytics? And I love this question because kind of like Lynn just mentioned, we're very much data driven. And so I can imagine that everyone is really, really busy doing a million things. You want to make sure that if you're spending time and effort in SEO, how do you know if it's working? And so there's a number of different things that we usually employ when it comes to analytics around SEO. And that is there's a couple different tools that you can use, but basically what you're looking at is, are you getting additional traffic from that keyword? So let's say that I create a landing page and I'm trying to sell automobiles, but I'm trying to sell a very specific type of automobile, a 1970 Camaro. If I'm putting effort into that page and doing the right title tags and I'm doing the right content, what I want to do is I want to see, am I getting more traffic to that page? So that's one of the things that I would keep track of. And the other thing is I would want to see, are people who are searching for that term, are they landing on that page? So am I showing up in those search engine rankings when people are searching for relevant terms such as 1970s Camaro? And so those are just a couple of like the two that I would really focus on. The hard thing with organic listings like this is it does usually take a while for those to get into the different search engines. And so that's one thing to keep in mind, is that you're probably not going to see something right away. But with tools such as Google Search Console, you can actually submit your site to be crawled next. And so you can submit it to Google and say, hey, I'd really like for you to go through my content and crawl my content so that I can get re-indexed, so to speak, because I might have new content ready for you. And so by doing that, you're kind of inviting that bot to come and revisit your site and make sure that that the new content that you have shows up in the rankings faster.
That's awesome. Is that something that you can do? Well, I'll bet we'll talk about it in 2 weeks, but kind of you wouldn't want to do that on a daily basis. I'm sure there's probably some best practices about how often you want to go, hey, Google, look here. Hey, Google. Hey, Google.
And it really does depend on how frequently your content changes. So let's say that you have weekly content that changes. You might want to go in there on a weekly basis and resubmit your site. And let's not just focus just on Google, but to Bing and Yahoo. Each of those are going to have their tools where you can do the same thing. The great thing about it is that these tools, for the most part, are free. So these tools come directly from the search engines. And keep in mind, that's why I loved starting with that first slide, is recognize that it's to the search engine's benefit for them to provide these tools to you as the site owners. They want to make it as easy as possible for you to tell them, hey, I've got new content. I want you to come and re-index my pages, because that benefits the search engine. So take advantage of that, and they also can give you tools where they can start to catalog what are those terms that people are using to get to your pages, and you can then make sure, are these efforts that I'm employing in the effort of search engine optimization, are they actually working?
Awesome. Great tips. Well, everybody, we're coming up on 1 o'clock. Unless we have some other questions, check your emails for a follow-up from us. We will have the blog updated shortly with the copy of this presentation. Encourage you to share it with your team members. Again, these are just, it feels good to be able to give back and do something right now. And so we hope that they've provided value. If you have a particular topic you want to make sure that we want to cover, you can always send us an email by filling out our contact form online, and we're here for you, and hope everybody makes it through happy and healthy, and get some new best practices that we'll all keep going forward. So anybody have anything else? All right, I think that's it. Thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you on Thursday at office hours.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.